Awesome, thanks. Okay, we ready to go? We'll call the June 3rd, 2020 Apopka City Council meeting to order. We're going to have Commissioner Smith give us the invocation, pledge, and fact of the day. Thank you.
Let us pray. Our Father, we come once again to say thank you for the many blessings bestowed upon us. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this opportunity to live in a country where we can pledge and serve you and pledge our allegiance to you openly and in public. We thank you, Father, for the opportunity now to serve in this capacity as this mayor, these commissioners, do those things that are pleasing in your sight for the betterment of the citizens of this city of Apopka. We ask your blessing upon all those that are in the chamber. Oh, Father, that all that we shall do and say will be pleasing and acceptable in your sight, that we'll be agreeable when we have left this place. We pray in thy Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
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 I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our fact for today, June 4th, 1919. The 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution guaranteeing women the right to vote is passed by Congress and sent to the states for ratification. The women's suffrage movement was founded in the mid-19th century and championed by leaders such as Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Clay Stanton, and Lucinda Mott. The movement continued into the 20th century and culminated with the passage of the 19th Amendment, which stated the rights of citizens of the United States to vote should not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex, passed both houses of Congress and was sent to the states for ratification. 8 days later, the 19th Amendment took effect. Fact of the day.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. Any changes to the minutes? If not, look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nolan. Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Agenda review. Edward?
Yes, Mayor, I have a few changes. Consent item number 2, we're going to ask that you move that to after business item number 1, since they are consent item number 2 is condition. It says condition based on the approval of the final development plan, so we need to move them to change that order. And then there's one more on business item 2. We're going to ask that that be moved to just after ordinance 2767 for the same reasons. We need to do the ordinance needs to be adopted prior to the preliminary development plan. So just so we want to change that order. And that's all the changes.
Okay. Thank you, Edward. Okay, next up, presentation by Dr. Jackson on the AYW summer program.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to stop in today to provide you all with an update regarding the Apopka Youth Works program. Thankfully, the program is still underway. We've received over 150 applicants, and many of the businesses are still committed to the program. Today, I just wanted to show 3 of the options that we are providing the students. The first option is the experience track. That's the track that we have always provided for the students. It allows for them to make $10 an hour to work at one of the local businesses, and also it's for 5 weeks this year. The second program is the Accelerate program. This will allow for the students to work from home. It's an online class. It will allow for them to pursue courses in advanced manufacturing, computer coding, and also construction. And lastly is the Explore program. The Explore program, we're opening it up to our 15-year-olds. They're They have in the past been the group that we've always tried to look for something for them to do. I've always received phone calls from parents for our ninth graders, always wanting to get them in something during the summer. So I'm happy to report that we will be able to allow for them to complete an online class, and that's going to be in conjunction with Orlando Tech and also Valencia College. This will allow for them to possibly go on some of the campuses of our local schools, and also it will allow for them to just learn a little bit more while taking an online class, so that they can start preparing for their future endeavors. One of the great things also with each of the programs is that the students will all receive some type of funding. So the Accelerate and the Explore program, the students receive a stipend for $1,000. And also for our normal internship, like I said, the students will receive $10 an hour. Any questions?
Any questions?
Have all of the positions been filled online already, or we still have room for applicants?
Are you stating students or employers?
Both, both.
Both. Right now, we have 106 students that have submitted everything that we require. We have, like I said, over 150 applicants. So some of the kids are kind of dragging their feet. I think now they're realizing, like, wait a minute, I need to make a little money. So we're just starting to get some of the final students submitting their required paperwork.
Okay, but there is room if there are
There
other
is room.
businesses that want to come in and be a part of that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we are definitely recruiting employers to participate. For the most part, most of our regulars, the ones that come back every summer, they're still committed. They've put measures in place to protect the students, and we have worked with Career Source to make sure that the students will be safe wherever they work. But for the most part, everyone's coming back.
And do they still go through the chamber to connect as a business?
They can connect through the chamber or directly through the Career Source business consultants.
Okay, but they don't call here, they don't call you, they go through
I
this?
mean, they can call me, of course,
Okay.
but if needed, they can contact the chamber directly or contact Career Source.
Yeah, I
Okay,
know
this-
that Robert had kind of, didn't know where we were going to go with the program, so he had about 4 or 5 weeks where he wasn't really out recruiting. So I know he's back in the last week or
Right,
two,
right.
back recruiting additional employers. I mean, because one of the questions I had for Career Source and Dr. Jackson was that we'll make sure it like the one that's kind of, on your own, make sure that we have some accountability. I don't want just to pay the kids $1,000 without some accountability, but the normal program is still going on, and we'll just sort of have kind of dual tracks on these programs.
I did talk with someone in the aviation mechanic industry, which is a tremendous career path for those who are given to that, and he's interested in that, so.
Definitely. We need to make that connection.
Cool.
Appreciate that.
Commissioner
Is
Smith.
there a cap on the number of students? I know you say you had 150 or 160 applicants.
So 115 is our number. Like, we know we are definitely going to meet that number. However, Career Source has pledged that if we have, within this next week, more students that apply, we will definitely put them in the one of the tracks, so Accelerate or Explore. So right now, we're still keeping it open.
Okay.
Commissioner Becker? Good. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, Jamie, Utility Billing and Census Customer Portal presentation. So, obviously, it's our water meters. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there for customers to kind of see what, it's amazing when they get their irrigation adjusted and all of a sudden, their water bill either goes way up or way down, and they want to know what happened. And so this is the opportunity to, to get on board with, the online customer service portal. So take it away, Jamie.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. With me, I have Tremaine Milton. She's actually our new hire recently in the last couple of months into the utility billing side. She's our accountant on the utility billing side. She's assisted me with this presentation today that I'm presenting to you. After we go through the few slides of the presentation, she's actually going to navigate you through the actual census portal, what a customer actually sees. So a couple of updates that we have. is a couple of UB COVID updates that we have here. We're still practicing social distancing due to the size of our lobby. Our lobby is only about 7 feet wide and about, I would say, maybe 18 feet long. And where the doors place, we don't really have the ability to social distance inside the lobby. So the lobby is still currently closed, but we have lots of online options for the customers to provide services to. You can view or pay your utility bill online with credit or debit card. You can sign up to receive e-bills, and you can also download on our website an auto pay direct debit for paying your bill through ACH debit. Also, the drive-through is fully open. I'm sure that many of you have seen that the line is out to the road some days, but my staff is doing a great job keeping the customers through the line and as quickly as possible. And another thing that I wanted to highlight is, in addition to Mayor and the IT department are doing weekly newsletter updates, so we've been communicating things through social media, through the newsletter, and through the newsletter that is put inside the utility bill. So what is the Census Customer Portal benefits? So obviously the greatest benefit is you can see and view your water and reclaim water consumption. You can analyze your consumption by month, week, day, and hour, which it updates, I believe, every 4 hours, and it can assist you as the customer in conserving water and locating possible leaks. The portal went live tentative as a soft rollout August 9th, 2019, and as of May 29th, 2020, we have 349 current users that have logged into the portal and signed up for accounts. You can access the portal from 2 different links. There's a link on our website at apopka.net that you can access it from, or you can access it directly from the census website. So there's a couple of things that you need to do when you sign up, and it's hard to see here. However, you've got to create an account. You'll enter an email address, and to set up an account, you'll need an email address and your bill. And once you enter in your email address, you'll get sent an email with an invitation link to it. Once you receive that link, you're gonna provide the information from your utility bill, which is your account number, and your 4-digit PIN number that is located on the utility bill. You will create a password, and then it will take you to the home page so that you can fully log in. And your login will be your email address and the password you created. Here's a sample of our utility bill. As you can see, it has account information on it that includes your account number, your PIN number, and your due date, the amount due, your current meter activity, and any special messages that we may post on your utility bill. And recently, we have also included, if there's a utility bill that has an estimated read, for whatever reason, if the meter is not working, it will show estimated read in the top of it, as well as on the bottom of the remit portion of the bill. So Tremaine, these next few slides are actually images of the actual dashboard, so you'll be able to better see this when Tremaine logs in. But there's a dashboard that has the billing cycle, has alerts, your total gallons used by the meter, and there's also a link in the top right of the bill and the top of there that has an ability to pay your bill. So if you're logged into your Census Customer Portal site, you can actually click the link to pay your bill. There's some user settings that Tremaine will go over. You can schedule alerts so that you receive emails, alerts about your water consumption, so you can set your own alerts that you would like to see up in there and when you manage the account, and she'll demonstrate that for you too. You can also link if you have multiple accounts. If you have a commercial account and a residential account, you can link both accounts to the one Census Customer Portal account, or if you have multiple residential properties as well. Again, these are some more user setting views, and this is the image of when you have multiple accounts. The account that we're going to show you today is actually a city account, and it has 2 meters on it. So we're going to demonstrate, because that was one of the issues when the customers first signed up, they couldn't see both of their meters on there. So she'll demonstrate that as well. and here's a meter view, and you can give a nickname to your meter. So if it's your irrigation or if it's your potable meter, you can nickname your meter so that you, when you log into your account, it's kind of customized for yourself as well. So again, just some general alerts, some billing cycle usages, daily usage, and vacation alerts. So, you know, we have some snowbirds that go and come from the Central Florida area, so they can set vacation alerts, any alerts associated with it so that they can manage their account while they're gone. So your usage, you can see a 24-hour view, a weekly view, and a monthly view. You can analyze and compare usage. So for example, we're going into summertime. So if you want to look at your usage in your summer months, you can look at just specific months and compare it to this time last year. Or if you want to look at the winter months, you can compare it to those months in previous years. And you can also download and export data from here as well. So some frequently asked questions. How often does the portal usage update? It's about a 4-hour increment. Usage information is typically updated every 4 hours, which this is actually better than where I live at. It's only a 24-hour update. So you can actually see the most up-to-date information. It's not real time, it's in 4-hour increments. If you forgot your password, how can you reset your password? You can click Forgot Password on the customer portal homepage, and you'll get a new link sent to your registered email address. Again, I covered what if you have more than one account. Do you need multiple sign-ins? No, you do not need multiple sign-ins. You can link various accounts. And then, as always, we ask that if anybody has any additional questions, commissioners, mayor, if you're in contact with someone and they have questions about the portal, please have them give us a call on utility billing. At our phone number, 407-703-1727, and we'll do our best to help facilitate and assist any customers in getting their portal set up. Again, we only have 349 users right now on this customer portal, and I believe many of them are probably the people that are sitting in this room. So
Out of how many?
out of
20,000.
we have 24,000 accounts. So this is a great tool. This is the tool we look at when the customers come in. There's a city version of this that we had prior to this. This is the tool that we use to look at your account to see if we can identify any leaks. We can see gallon usages. We can export data out and get information so that we can see what the peaks and valleys are in that data to identify how we can better assist the customer. So this is a tool that is at the fingertips of the customers now that we invested about $16,000 in, that we are hoping that our customers begin using so they can better manage their accounts. So now I'm going to turn it over to Tremaine so she can actually navigate the system so you can see it. Let's sign out and let you sign back in.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, so this is going to be your sign-in homepage. As Jamie mentioned before, when you're on the homepage, this is where you would go if you've already previously registered to click for Forgot Password. If you need to register, this is where you would go to set up an account.
That's a pretty easy password there. It's a row of asterisks.
All right, so now we're on our homepage. From the homepage here or the dashboard, you have different options. For those that need a different language version, you're able to toggle between the English as well as Spanish. Here, the link, if you click it, it will take you to the customer portal site to pay your bill. So there's always a feature to from here to pay your bill as well. Sorry. Here we have, and I'm going to show you, we've already added 2 customers so that I can show you how to add multiple accounts. But again, you can toggle between 2 meters. So if you had an additional meter, it would have 1 and 2 here as well. And then this is the name that I gave it, irrigation. And I'll show you how to change that as well. So we're gonna start with the meter tab, or dashboard, I should say. From here, this is where you can change the name. So if this was your potable water, you can name it that. And then you can link back to your dashboard. And so now it has changed from irrigation to potable. Under your settings, this is where you can set any kind of alert. So if you wanted to know anytime that you've used over a certain amount of water, you can enable it. So here I can say, let me know whenever I've used over 300 gallons. And of course, you'll save it, and then you can designate an email address where you want your alerts to go to as well. So whether you're in town or out of town, anytime you've used over 300 gallons, you'll get an alert to let you know that.
Is it only email or can it be text as well?
Let's go. I believe it can be text on the, I'll tell you really quick, on the settings, user settings.
Cell phone,
Customize
there we
which
go.
alerts you want to receive. So you can do email or text. So that's meters and that's settings, and then the other one is the usage details. Okay, so from here, if we're looking at your usage, this is where you can designate how you want to view it, whether it's a 24-hour span, 7 days, 30 days, or even 12 months. This box allows you to designate what day. If you want it to go from, let's just look at June 1st to June 1st, you have the ability to do that. You would refresh it, and then it would provide it for you here. So looking at this meter, it ran between 3 and it looks like 5 o'clock on the 1st. If you wanted to do a month, again, you can designate the time frame that you want it to do. So you can either use the calendar or you can type in. And always hit the refresh, and then you'll be able to see your 12-month usage as well. So looking at this, I would say this looks average to me. In the summer, you tend to use a little more, then you dwindle down into the winter, and then back up heading into the summer months. This little icon here is where you're able to download. You can use PDF or Excel, any version, and download any kind of report that you're looking for. And I think that is all of the settings. Do we have any questions?
Mr. Becker?
Well, you're asking the software business guy if I have any questions about software, so of course I have a few questions. And kind of just logistical in nature too. So on this, the sign-in for this particular dashboard, is that separate than Civic Plus?
Yes.
Okay.
They're not related. This
So-
is the census customer
Okay.
portal just for the meter reading software.
Yeah, because I'm thinking long-term, right? So if we want to drive up adoption, people want to have as least amount of friction as possible. So if they have a Civic Plus sign-in, if they have a census sign-in, if they have a billing sign-in, if they have probably a sports, recreation sign-in, if those aren't all kind of, if we don't have a single sign-on approach or strategy, I think it might deter adoption rates from getting to where we want them to be. So just FYI, I don't know if Rob can talk to that eventually. And then I saw on the first page, if we do the auto drafts, that's solely dependent upon someone faxing in information. Are we looking to explore electronic means for them to sign up for
They
that?
can submit through ACH and email they can download the form on the website.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be a
They can
fax.
email it
Okay.
to
The word fax makes me cringe. I don't even know if most people even have those anymore, do that concept. On the billing, I like how you've pivoted to having the estimated billing if it is as such. do we explain what that means on the bill? Because I don't know if it's intuitive for people to see the estimated, what does that mean for me, and what should I do about it?
It just started populating in the last 2 or 3 billing cycles.
Okay.
So I don't know if we've received any phone calls about it.
Yeah, we've received some phone calls when they've seen it on there, and we've just kind of explained it to them, what the estimated means. But on the bill itself, there's not a definition, no.
Do we have the ability to put tips on the bill, or is it just pretty standard
Let
report?
us look into that,
Okay.
and then we'll get back to you.
Okay, and then when they sign up for something like this, what if they don't have a replaced meter or their meter's broken? If it's one of the ones that's on the kind of the list of us to replace, does that prevent them from signing in, or what does that look like?
They would still be able to sign in. It would just be here, you can see the current billing cycle. So if there was any information missing, you wouldn't see current
Okay.
information.
And that should raise a red flag, obviously, with folks to say, hey, wait a second, this is not reporting anything.
Correct.
And again, kind of the tips for why you would be in an estimated status, similar tips to say, hey, if my reading is showing 0, what does that mean? I mean, it's a myriad of reasons, right? It could be you have cars above the meter that the electronic signal is being blocked, or whatever the case might be. So it might be helpful for that experience too. And then lastly, you did a great job of running through this. Is there a plan to put like a video tutorial someplace? Because I think adoption's predicated on people knowing how to use it, and then 2, if they find value once they get into it. So are you able to do like a video tutorial that we can post either on the website or put out on social media or what have you?
We have posted out a flyer that Kelly assisted us with creating in the last several months about you signing up for the account. We can explore what our options are available with IT, if we can create a video of some sort.
Rob, you want to come down and? 'Cause one of the other things we're trying to do is trying to get more people signed up for the weekly newsletter as well, because things are, the monthly newsletter, is a 60-day look in the future, and things could change. So the 2 things I really asked, staff to work on, I know Rob and Kelly are working hard on, is trying to get more people engaged in our social media platform so that we can get the information that's more current out faster to them, so.
So absolutely, we can do a video for it. We can use Camtasia. We can actually do it as if the user's sitting there and just talking through it. It'll actually be just them looking at a screen, and it'll be a fairly simple video.
Yeah, cool.
So we'll add that to our plate of tasks or projects for Tremaine that
Nice, you did a great job.
help get this promoted. Kelly has been pushing out as we've been trying to decrease the traffic in the UB lobby. We have been trying to push people to pay their bills online, to eliminate the drive-through, because the drive-through tends to get backed up, especially when we have new services, when they have to actually do paperwork for that. So we are trying to push as many people to online ability to pay their bills, submit ACH, so you don't even have to come in to make a payment. We can auto draft it from your bank account, obviously pending on each individual person's circumstances. That might not work right now, but so we're trying to push as many people to sign up for those items as we can to help mitigate the foot traffic, especially with it being related to the pandemic of what's going on with COVID-19.
And AMSCOT as well. Is another.
AMSCOT as well. You can still go pay your utility bill at any AMSCOT location around. However, there is a $1.50 fee that AMSCOT charges for processing. That is solely for them. None of that $1.50 comes back to the city.
Okay, Commissioner Smith.
I think it's an excellent tool, and it would save people from coming down to the water department, asking questions as to why their bill is increased. And I would definitely promote it, because I get calls all the time about their water bill and why is it so high. And so this gives them a snapshot they can actually look and see at their water usage. And of course, my wife sent me to the water department because the bill had increased, and it was the irrigation that was the increasing. And so I was trying to convince the clerk behind the desk that I only water on the 2 days that I'm supposed to water. And she pulled it up in front of me and showed me that I was watering while I was standing there talking to her. And found out that I actually had a leak in my irrigation system. So it's a great tool. And so I think it's going to encourage citizens to actually use this in a positive way.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Commissioner Banks?
Yes, I desperately wish I'd had this a month ago because I found in my surprise bill this month is like 5 times higher and found that I had an irrigation pipe that had burst in 2 zones were gushing out water. So a couple quick questions. Again, for auto billing, to sign up for that, there's a form, but you still have to download, print the form and then somehow get it back in, or can you do
email
it?
back to us on our website for the ACH billing. There is a fillable form that
Okay.
you can fill out as well. So you have the options. Some people still to this day are not comfortable with doing business through electronic means. So they're like, I'm gonna give you my bank account information through a form and it's gonna go somewhere out in the cloud. But there's an electronic form on the website that is pre-populated.
That you can
and
fill in
just
right
fill it
there.
in and hit submit. And you can also print the form. You can either scan it and email it back to us, or you can drop it off through the drive-through.
Or fax?
Or fax, whatever you feel comfortable. One thing that I would like to highlight and encourage is for everyone to help promote this for us so that we can have more utilization, see if there's things we need to change, because we don't have a whole lot of users, 349 out of 24,000 customers. Obviously, there's some overlaps there if there's businesses and residentials that overlap, but it's a great tool. I've learned a lot from it too, and being able to compare it to where I live in St. Cloud, our tool is more robust than their tool because of the timing, the real life, every 4-hour increment. You don't have to wait 24 hours for it to update is huge.
Yeah, because you could look at that 4 hour in the middle of the night, and if it should be 0. If it's not, then you've got a leak. I mean, that would be a pretty
And
easy
also-
way to,
We're getting a lot of phone calls right now about their utility bills going up. Well, you gotta remember, people are home, so there's more consumption during the day. And with the irrigation watering changing due to the temperatures outside, you get an additional day where you didn't have before. So people are seeing slight increases, but I personally just had to have all my sprinklers checked too in the last 3 weeks to make sure that I wasn't gonna have a huge water bill. So make sure, since we're televising this or YouTubing this, make sure you check your irrigation, especially as you're changing your times, because that's what gets people on their utility bills, especially this time of year. And if you have a new build and you just moved into a new home, we tell the customers when they start service, make sure you change your utility, your settings on your irrigation system, because the developer or the builder has them set to run for crazy amounts of hours, and you'll get an $800 water bill if you don't change the settings. So please check those settings on your irrigation systems.
I do think having the ability to sign up online is going to help us increase that, because there'll be more people who will set it for auto billing, which is much more convenient. The other question, is there an app in our future?
We'll have to check with census on that. I don't know, Rob, have you had any, is there an app? For census? I haven't seen anything, but we'll follow up with our census representative to see if there is an app in the near future.
Okay, and just being able to report any kind of issues like that immediately can really help, so.
good. Commissioner Nolan?
Okay, so you guys, I'm really big about the, less passwords kind of situation too. You said that, there's, a link on there to link us back to the billing, correct? Now, is there a way, like, once I sign into my billing one time, every time I click that link, it always has that information? Or is it like where they're kind of connected in a way? No.
They're not
So,
connected.
okay.
They're separate. Actually, when you go to pay your bill online, you go to a different site. You proceed to check out at an actual Edmunds, which is our utility billing software site, to process your payment. So they are not this one and the same.
Right. I am excited about it. I know, like me personally, I like to see what's going on, and more information, the better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies, appreciate it. Okay, next up, we've got Susan's going to be giving us a presentation on the cemetery space availability and cost. And while she's coming up, and I know Edward's going to bring it up in his administration report about, the revenue and all that. And so we start to think about things as it relates to our budgets and whatnot. And one of the things I kind of honed in on last year was our cemetery. And if as she goes through it, you talk about, what the revenues we bring in for the actual plots. And then we talk about the cost associated with maintaining the cemetery, and it's losing money, which that's fine. But as you look farther into the future, and when you no longer have any lots to sell, and your expenses keep going up, what are you going to do then? So I've asked Susan and Linda to take a look at that, and so her presentation kind of goes off the thought that, you know, at some point, we're no longer going to have lots to sell, and we're going to have expenses that keep increasing, and what do we do at that point? So, Susan?
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Okay, so I've put together just an overall view of what steps we need to take. So basically, we currently have, only like, for standard size spaces, we only have about 295 left remaining to sell. And so we're running out, we've always got people that want to be by a family member or so, and we're really getting low on our spaces. So back in February, Linda and the cemetery personnel met with our surveyor, our city surveyor, Ryan Johnson from Southeastern Surveying. And they went over what we needed, what we were looking for. And so basically, we identified that first we would need to, we already had a few areas that we wanted to look at that, so he has come, Ryan gave us an estimate of fees that it would cost. So first we would need to get a boundary survey done to even start this process. So that would be task one, and of course, that's whenever we put the proposal together and you all vote on it. Then he's going to need to, the second phase would be the platting, of course. So the areas that we've identified are only going to account for 650 additional plots. So there are other areas that we have that are really heavily treed that are going to take a lot more to, so for right now, we were just concentrating on those few areas. So let me go back to the areas that we're proposing. So then we've got, so that was that, and then this is the cost of those. So then sales and cemetery, the fluctuate, the proposed for 2020 is probably is going to be higher than that. I don't know, but that's just an estimate. But so basically they're about the same. They're kind of even on that. But with regard to that, we have, our costs, and our cost of, just the cemetery personnel and to maintain it is approximately $177,388. And that doesn't even include any of the costs that the clerk's office does, because we have to, we schedule the appointment, we work with the funeral home or the family to assist in, preparing the interment, the burial permit, making sure that, everything goes right with the funeral. So to that end, it's usually, it's easily $50,000 annually that the uncompensated expenses are for the clerk's office. So that, in addition to the 177, is quite a bit of money. So basically what we, and let me go back, I'm not using my thing. So this is the expenditures on that. And then we have our fees survey. We did a survey for all of the other local municipalities and what they charge for their cemetery spots, et cetera. And it's kind of small. It was having trouble blowing up, so I've given it to you on your handouts. It's still kind of small on your handouts. But in other words, we're pretty much pretty low in comparison. Some cemeteries are a little bit lower, but it depends. We offer a lot, I feel, in our cemetery because we have so many unique areas, and a lot of people come to our cemetery just because of that. So I feel like this is just a summary of what prices were. It's probably been, 8 months since we've got those, but I don't anticipate that they've gone up. Now, we have not gone up in our rates since 2011. That's the last time the city raised our cost of our spaces. And at that time, it was, the same process, I'm sure, but it was, the resident rate went for $800 and the non-resident for $1,200. So a lot of, and that's just for the standard spaces. So, a lot of people, come here just because we have good prices on that. But also, I feel like there's, that we do have such a unique cemetery, and it's, but the cost of maintaining over, perpetual is going to be, we have to make sure that we allocate, enough for perpetual care. Once we sell out of all our spaces and the spaces that we plat are sold out, we need to be able to have some sort of a fund so that we can carry on all the maintenance and everything that's required to, water, everything that's required to maintain our cemetery, and so that we can keep it nice. And so, let me go, I think I skipped something. These are our cemetery spots that we still have available, and this is before the platting. So standard are just the 3.5 by 10 spaces, and we also allow 2 cremains in 1 standard space, just, so a lot of people will buy one and do that. But our cremain spaces are just 2 by 2, and they're just, we have a good section of those still left. And then we still have a small amount of child or baby. And then we have looked into getting prices on columbariums, because columbarium might be another way to go. A lot of people ask for it. They say, do you have a mausoleum or a columbarium? So we've looked at prices on that. This is a 48, it's a standard one that most cities utilize, if they do a columbarium. So this includes, the cost of it is $13,960. They do have a 24 niche one that's $7,200, but it's a lot smaller. It doesn't have front and back. This one has front and back, so it can be put in a smaller place and not, take up a whole bunch of room. And
Can I ask a quick question? I'm not up with my terminology. What's a columbarium? I'm not familiar with that term.
Okay,
What is-
so it's a niche where you put your cremains.
Okay.
It-
And
it's-
is it just as for one or for multiple?
Yeah, it's like a,
It's like a
it's like a
tower.
mailbox, like the mailboxes on a street. Or you got,
Okay.
you got 48 boxes.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so then you can, and some of them have 2, like, you can fit, you can do them so that they have 2 doors or some, and then you can also have them, put your loved one's name on the outside of it. It's $150 per door on that. And this is just proposed from, just information we've collected. And then proposed cost on the niches is $800 or $1,200, based upon, again, double occupancy, or, if you get a single niche or if you get a double niche. And these are all, again, similar to what other cities charge on that. So, and it takes about 16 weeks to get one of those if we wanted to do something like that. And that's a possibility also. But basically, the idea is just to try to get present this to you and see what your thoughts are. Again, we haven't done any price increases in over 9 years. And, the costs are just going up on everything from water to, just all the maintenance, the personnel costs, everything. So all the equipment that the guys use and all that. So I think that's really all I have for right now. And if you guys have any questions, I'll be glad to
Any
answer.
questions, Alice?
The
Commissioner
question I
Holman?
have, it says there's 48 spaces, and I'm just wondering if the location where we're talking about putting it, in case this becomes a popular item and we need to add some additional, would there be space to add another one?
Yeah, well, I think that's what we would have to take into consideration. I feel like it would be somewhere where we can maybe, because it's not real super tall either, so it wouldn't take up a whole lot of room. It doesn't, I don't have the exact specs on it yet. I was just gathering information. But I feel like if we had, you know, we would put it in a space probably that would have enough room to perhaps build another one.
Okay.
Mr. Becker?
So are these the fees that we currently have, or these are the fees that you're pivoting
Yeah,
to?
Those are the current fees.
Current fees, okay.
Yeah.
And then one opportunity, and I'm just perusing this, but it looks like Orlando is the only one that has listed what they charge for double interment. On our line item, when we say double interment, is that specifically for the regular space?
A double interment space would be a space that has a double vault in it. It is required that at the time of the interment, the double vault goes in so that we can keep them, you know, from, you know, they have to be placed that way or else they could cave in. And so we have, those are 1,200 or 1,800.
Right, and the point I was making is just if this, Orlando is indeed the only one that I see on here that, if that's true, they do it just basically double the cost. I mean, they don't give any benefit
Oh, I got
for
you.
double. It's not like you're getting value because you get two instead of one. They just, if it's 15 for one, 1,500 for one, it's 3,000 for two.
Yeah.
So, and maybe something that we want to consider as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, the reason I just wanted to bring it forward is, well, first of all, we've got to do, we're running out of spots. We have to do the survey, so we have additional spaces. But the one thing I'm looking at is not this year, next year, or 5 years from now, but in 30 years when we're out of lots, and now we no longer have income coming in, but we've still got, now we're at $200,000 or $300,000 in expenses. It's, you know, it's coming out of general revenue, our general funds. And so I just, you know, to me, you know, if we were to go raise the rates, what I'd love to see us do is to take those additional dollars, put them into a perpetual fund where that we could use that in the future when we finally finished selling all our lots, we could use those perpetual dollars to help with the maintenance versus being, you know, all of a sudden now we've sold all our lots and we're having to pay full maintenance coming out of general funds. So that was, so the things we have to do, we have to get the survey. I mean, that's, you know, which we'll bring forward here in the next, you know, next couple of commission meetings. I would suggest to, I'd like, if we're gonna go up on rates, my suggestion would be, I don't care what the number is, but I'd like to see those additional dollars not go to general funds, but go toward a perpetual fund so that we, you know, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we've got a fund there that would help pay those expenses when we no longer have income coming in. Commissioner Bankston?
Just one thought here is just the security of the columbarium. Is there any possibility of vandalism there other than external? You know, you have people do those things.
I would check into that, but we have, I mean, the company that I actually got the cost from, they do other things similar, like benches and things, and they have a way where it can be secure with like a, sort of like a key thing. So it looks like it, you know, the door can only be opened by a certain key. I mean, it's, I guess there's always that.
So is it individually, each door is accessible? Or
Yeah.
is it like a rod system that, once it's in there,
No,
it's there?
each, from what I understand, each one is individual.
So that would be just one little concern. I know in other places where I've seen this, and I was born in Southern California, they have large areas, but many times they're in enclosed buildings, so there's not just general access to those. So that's just the one thought, make sure that what
Yeah,
we
we
get
could
is
have to-
something
well,
that
we
has
could
good security.
Address that, because I could ask those questions and see how other cities do it and see what else they recommend on that and bring that back to you.
Commissioner Nolan?
When we, like, after the survey, we see what we can put in there, have we thought about talking to the funeral homes around here, seeing what, like, people are wanting, see what,
Well,
you
yes,
know?
we have. We've had several funeral homes asking us, you know, about them, you know. And we
About
did-
columbariums.
The demand.
Yes,
Yeah,
columbariums.
yeah.
And we did have, we have a mausoleum out there, but it's sold out, and it's been sold out. And so, but we have had a lot of interest in that, because, you know, I mean, it's just, it seems like a lot of people, you know, if you want to be if you're a person that wants to be cremated, I mean, that's a nice way to, I feel like it's a nice way to do it. They, you know, a lot of people are like, well, I don't really want to, you know, be in the ground for whatever reason. But anyway, a columbarium, I think, is a nice way to do it, but it was just another option that we can
I
provide
was
to you
just
guys.
seeing like, you know, if they gave us any ideas, seeing, you know, I guess, I want to make sure we're not putting something up that people may or may not use. I'll be honest, I
Oh.
haven't thought that far yet, so
Yeah,
I don't know what's popular out there, what people are
I
doing.
feel like it's pretty popular, but, you know, just based on what I've discussed with one of our monument companies.
That's perfect, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. All right,
Okay.
appreciate it, Susan, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, while you're up there, public comment, do we have any cards, Susan?
Okay, we have 3.
3, thank you.
Okay, the first one was on May 26th from LaShonda Wood at 134 West 8th Street. Her concern was speed bumps are needed on West 8th Street. She writes, for several months, there's been alarming activity on West 8th Street, i.e. drive-by shootings, hit and runs, heavy street activity, task force present. But lately, drag racing. She was a lifelong resident of Apopka. She has never seen this part of the city in so much turmoil. She dares say anything else to these young individuals because of retaliation. So, but she's personally affected without participation of unjust behavior. I'm asking that the city please consider installing speed bumps on West 8th Street. The initiative alone would slow down traffic, possibly save a life. My gate has been plowed into twice within 3 months. Late night, I hear individuals racing cars, speeding, then coming to a screeching halt. Cheers, and then more speeding. They also run completely through and through the stop sign by the church. It's just a matter of time when an innocent bystander is going to be caught up in their paths. I ask that you please look into this. I know it would be slow down the criminal activity on that end of 8th Street. They won't be able to flee from the officers as they're doing now. Okay. The next one was on 6/3 this morning from Brenda Willard. She's an Apopka resident. Hello, mayors and commissioners. Did tourist investments walk away from the city center project? I haven't heard or seen any other development coming out of there other than the hotel. Many Apopkans are excited about the development, especially for that area, and it's in need of a facelift. Thanks for all the great leadership. Then we have another one, actually came in 6/2 from Carl Johnson in Apopka. I drove by South Apopka today. I have to say I'm happy to see improvements. South Apopka is absolutely beautiful, and if you take the time to really look. Unincorporated South Apopka is better, however, South Apopka Incorporated is heading towards the right path. I think South Apopka needs a little bit more TLC like other areas of Apopka get. Trees are extremely dead or need to be trimmed. Roads are falling apart. Lights for safety. With new development coming to the area south of Apopka, really needs to get a great addition. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioner Bankton, for making sure that South Apopka is finally a priority.
Thank you, Susan. I guess I'll just, the one I guess we could address South Popka. We are definitely putting in sidewalks, streetlights, so they're coming. As to Taurus, in contact them on an as-needed basis. Obviously, the hotel is not opening up, I think, until August, could be even later than that, based on, the coronavirus, and have not heard anything from them as to retail or restaurants coming yet. I mean, they're out there hustling, but nothing that they've been able to sign on the dotted line. So we're helping where we can, but at this point, nothing in the immediate works from Taurus as to the town center. Okay. Next up, consent agenda. We've got the consent agenda items we'd like to get a motion to approve the consent agenda other than consent agenda item number 2.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nolan.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, next up, final development plan, Hidden Lakes Reserve subdivision. Jim?
Actually, Gene's coming up.
Who? Gene, okay.
Gene.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Jean Sanchez with the Community Development Department. This is a request to approve the final development plan for Hidden Lake Reserve, and please note that this project is subject to the 1994 Land Development Code. The property is located north of Old Dixie Highway and east adjacent of Apopka Elementary School. Here's the area of the property showing the conservation area located on the east central portion of the property. The subdivision plan proposes a gated townhome community with 92 townhome units and private streets. The required minimum living area of each townhome unit is 1,350 square feet. Ingress and egress access point will occur via full access on Old Dixie Highway, and a left turn lane is also provided on Old Dixie Highway, as well as an emergency road and gate that connects to the internal street with Shirley Drive within Clayton Estates. A cross-access easement is placed across the internal streets to allow the students from the school to walk from Clayton Estates. 184 parking spaces are required. However, a total of 225 parking spaces are provided. 41 overflow parking spaces are provided on-street and within the pool facility area. Shown is the amenity plan proposed by the previous applicant that showed a pool and a tot lot with the minimum parking spaces under the approved preliminary development plan. Subsequently, the previous applicant proposed to omit the pool during the time of final development plan review in 2018, which was never approved. However, the current applicant is proposing that the amenity include a pool, clubhouse, dog park, and a walking trail along the perimeter of the conservation area. With the addition of parking spaces, the changes proposed by the current applicant triggered additional time for review, which accounts for the length of time between the approval of the preliminary development plan in 2018 until now. The landscape plan meets the requirements of the 1994 Land Development Code, and the buffer consists of 6 feet tall 3 foot tall masonry, as well as a 3 foot tall wrought iron fence with masonry columns within a 10-foot wide buffer tract along Old Dixie Highway. A 6-foot high brick wall exists on the northern perimeter within the 10-foot wide buffer tract in Clayton Estates residential subdivision. The eastern project line consists of a 20-foot, within the eastern project line, it was involved in a variance meeting on June 12, 2018, with the Planning Commission, where they accepted to waive the brick wall within the wetland and its 25-foot upland area, with requirements for a 6-foot high brick wall along other lengths of the Bradshaw right-of-way. Also proposed is a 6-foot tall masonry wall with a 10-foot wide buffer tract along the single-family homes of the southwestern corner of the project and along Apopka Elementary School, as recommended by the Planning Commission at its meeting for the variance. Development Review Committee recommends the approval of the Hidden Lake Reserve Subdivision Final Development Plan, subject to the findings of the staff report. And the Planning Commission, at its August 15, 2018 meeting, found the Hidden Lake Reserve Subdivision PDP consistent with the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan, and recommended approval of the development plan, subject to the conditions of approval and findings of the staff report. The recommendation today is to approve the Hidden Lake Reserve Final Development Plan. Staff and I believe applicant is here available for questions.
Okay, any questions for Gene?
I just have a question, I don't know for you or for them, but the wall now is going around that, the lake that would keep people from getting down in there as opposed to along the eastern edge. Am I reading that correctly?
The wall will be,
So it goes down and then goes around the pond, lake, whatever that is?
The wall is right here.
And then it goes up and
And then it
around?
goes right
Or does it
here.
go? Okay, so is that a barrier around?
This is actually just part of the wetland area that can't be touched.
But where the black line goes up and around it
Around the
and then
pond.
back down?
Oh, that's just to delineate.
There you go, that, there.
That, there,
That's just, there's retention walls
okay.
around here.
So it's a retention wall, but it's not a wall, a
Correct.
barrier wall, okay.
Yep.
Any other questions for Gene before the applicant comes forward?
No, probably just my comments would be for the
Yeah.
applicant, so.
Good afternoon, my name is William Zay. I'm project engineer with Madden, Moorhead and Stokes. One of the designers on this project. To answer your question, Commissioner, a little more clearly, add a little clarification there. Like Gene had said, the
You got the-
wetland there, is there,
There's a pointer.
okay,
Pointer? Yeah.
thank you. So, as Gene has specified, this is the wetland. There is a 10 to 15 foot retaining wall coming all the way around here. So there is no real access for pedestrians or anybody there. That wall also has a 42-inch handrail on top of it.
Okay, so it
So-
will protect children from wandering down and
Correct.
crawling, okay.
Same thing for the ponds. There's another retaining wall at the back of lots that also has a 42-inch handrail in these locations here. The pond itself, there is a walking trail, but it is blocked on the north side by retaining wall, on the south side by the handrail.
Okay,
So public safety is taken there.
okay, good.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, well, first comment, I mean, this is, I forget when the last time we saw this piece of business, not with this applicant, but with a
Yeah.
different one. So I think all of our concerns when we first
Right.
reviewed this
Right.
have been mitigated or are actually better than the
Yes.
proposal that we saw before. So that's reassuring. Two, my second question would just be, and I guess just confirm my assumption, the connection point into the Clayton Estates, that's meant for primarily pedestrian traffic. It's just the width of an emergency vehicle would be able to get there in emergency only. It's not intended to be the way that it's on this plan, a driveway or a connection point, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then I guess my last question is, how come you didn't name it after the lake unnamed water body on the plan? That has a better ring to it, does it not? So, no, all good.
And let me ask one question. The gate that goes to Apopka Elementary, is that going to be a gate that can be secured at some time when school is not open, or is it just going to be an open walk?
There is a pedestrian gate there.
Okay.
Good, everybody? Okay, thank you. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this issue? If not, I look for a motion to approve the final development plan for Hidden Lake Reserve subdivision.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we'll pull up the developers agreement for Hidden Lake Reserve. Richard?
Good afternoon, Richard Earp, city engineer. Okay, so this is the developers agreement that primarily, the main purpose is to address section 5.15 of the Land Development Code for guarantees and sureties. And that section requires that we stipulate the improvements will be constructed within a defined period. It'll document the cost of construction of the improvements. It'll specify the timetable for the dedication of the public improvements, and it will establish the amount of the performance bond or the surety. So in this case, since it's a private subdivision, there are public improvements, which include the turn lanes on Old Dixie Highway and the lift station and the water lines and the reclaimed lines. Those are the public improvements. Then there are HOA improvements, which are the roadways, the sidewalks, all the landscaping and the screen walls, and also the retaining walls. And then the last category is the amenity improvements. That's the pool and cabana, the dog park, and the walking trails. So the construction sequence is that now that the final development plan has been approved, we'll have a pre-construction meeting, and then they will immediately begin work on first they'll do the erosion and sediment control stabilization for the site. And then next they'll begin to build the roadways and the lift station and the sewers and the sidewalks. but they want to get an early start on building the buildings. So their prerequisites before they build the first building, which will serve as a model center, and the building for the actual amenity itself, the prerequisites for that are that they will have the plat recorded, and that they will have in place a performance bond for 110% of the cost associated with all of the construction of the development. And since the model homes and the amenity are going up right at the very entrance to the subdivision, we'll make sure that they have a stabilized roadway and fire hydrants available for the fire department in case, while they're building those buildings, a fire can respond to them. So before we issue those certificates of occupancy on the first residential building and the amenity structure, they'll need to finish all of the public and HOA improvements. So all of the roadways, sidewalks, retaining walls, lift station, all that'll have to be 100% complete before we'll issue the certificates of occupancy on those first, on the first two buildings. After they get the certificate of occupancy and what we call a certificate of acceptance for all the site improvements, they'll get those right about the same time. Then we'll let them pull the rest of the building permits for the buildings, but we'll only issue certificates of occupancy up to 27 of the 92 units. And before we issue the 27th certificate of occupancy, they'll need to have the swimming pool and the dog park and the pool and cabana all finished and closed out entirely. So that's the purpose of the developers agreement. If you have any questions, I'm here and the developer.
Any questions for Richard? Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve the developers agreement for Hidden Lake Reserve.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nolan.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, got the preliminary development plan for DFL 5, Apopka Last Mile.
Is this the one that we moved? I think we moved it after.
But that's right, I'm sorry, it's after that one. Yep. So, ordinance number 2768.
Okay. All right. Ordinance number 2768. An ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, to extend its territorial and municipal limits to annex pursuant to Florida Statute 171.044, the hereinafter described land situated and being in Orange County, Florida, owned by Eugene and Willie Williams, located north of Dewberry Avenue and east of Hermit Smith Road, providing for directions to the city clerk, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Any changes?
No changes.
Okay. Any questions? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to adopt ordinance number 2768.
So
Got a
moved.
motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Nolan. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2767.
Ordinance 2767. An ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending ordinance number 2709, which amends the adopted Mid-Florida Logistics Park Planned Unit Development, PUD, Master Plan for certain real property generally located to the west side of State Road 429, south of General Electric Road, and east of Hermit Smith Road, comprising 189 acres, more or less, and owned by Mid-Florida Freezer Warehouses LTD, GFI, Apopka Realty LLC, UCF Hotel Venture, this 2, BPG Apopka Properties 1 LLC, and Mid-Florida Logistics Owners Association, Inc., providing for directions to the Community Development Director, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and setting an effective date.
Okay. David?
David Moon, Planning Manager. Back in early March, city staff met with Seafried Properties and their consultant, engineering consultants, Kimley Horn. Seafried is here, Paul Seafried and Clay Thompson, and Kimley Horn, if you raise your hands. And they wouldn't tell us who they were representing, but it involved a 200,000 square foot distribution center called the Last Mile. They wouldn't tell who they were or who they were representing, rather, but they did tell us they wanted to be under construction in the middle of July. So Given that, we set out a plan to try to accomplish that. So at this point, you had the first reading for an amendment to the PUD master plan for the Mid-Florida Logistics Park. But on the agenda tonight, you also have the preliminary development plan for Lot 3 that accommodates what they represent, which is Amazon. Also in play, we have construction plans that are already under review, the final development plan by the Development Review Committee. We have building plans that are under review by the Building Division, and we have a development agreement similar to what Mr. Earp just described that's also under play. We're hoping to have all this come to a conclusion by the June 17th City Council meeting or close to it. So both the Seafried team and staff have been busy to get here in less than 3 months to the approval process. The Mid-Florida Freezer, the applicant is actually Blue Scope Properties and Mid-Florida Freezer. Mid-Florida Freezer is the property owner of Lot 3 within the industrial park. The area is shaded in black south of General Electric. To the west of 429 is the industrial park. The general area around that industrial park is industrial. There is some residential land at the southwest corner, or rather, yeah, residential land at the southwest corner of General Electric and Hermit Smith, as well as an unincorporated area that is located at the southwest area of Hermit Smith and 441. Just to let you know, there is some residency zone property in that area in the future where we could possibly have apartments or residential development. Given that, the applicant, Seafried, asked for an amendment to the master plan to expand Lot 3 and decrease the lot area of 4. The Blue Scope has control over those lots, though owned by Mid-Florida Freezer. So the primary request in their amendment was change Lot 3 from 24 acres to 43 acres and Lot 4 from 35 acres to 15 acres. So what you see in front of you, let me get the pointer set, is to the north, here's the other one, a larger lot here at the south of General Electric to the west of Shelby Industrial Drive. Lot 4 to the south will remain undeveloped for a future user. So the lot area for 3 went from 399,000 to 202,000 square feet, which Amazon will be, and lot 4 went from 655,000 to 290,000 square feet. To accommodate the Amazon, besides increasing those lot areas and the building areas, they also needed to obtain some right-of-way on the south side of General Electric Road to accommodate possible future improvements along General Electric. Those possibly could occur. They're being discussed with the Seafried and Kimley Horn this week. Then, in the event the road needs to expand, there's a possibility those 5 additional feet will cause an encroachment into the 15-foot buffer along General Electric Road. So variance is granted through this process to allow the buffer along General Electric and Hermit Smith to go from 15 to 10 feet to accommodate that additional right-of-way for potential future development or to accommodate the sidewalks. Another change is to accommodate additional right-of-way along Hermit Smith Road. First round that the master plan came through, we missed that the pavement of Hermit Smith Road is actually located, public road, on Tract A, the retention pond. So part of this process is going to involve a replat of Lot 3 and Lot 4 to change their lot sizes, but also to pull part of the Stormwater Tract A into the city's ownership, to pull that into the official right-of-way for Hermit Smith Road. Then the other key changes related to this are related to the stormwater needs. Originally, we had hoped to address this track A, the stormwater, to accommodate stormwater from future improvement of General Electric. The developer, Blue Scope, needs to reserve that for future capacity for lots 3 and 4. So that is no longer in play. So that was presented in front of City Council, or rather, Planning Commission. You'll see that in condition E. This change is out. They're no longer going to be using Tract A for stormwater. So that summarizes the major changes between the last plan and the current master plan. So what are the conditions of approval for the master plan is that prior to the adoption of the amendment, there likely will be a development agreement that will address the off-site and on-site improvements containing the items that Mr. Earp described earlier within the Hidden Lake project. There's a replat of Lot 3 and 4 in Tract A necessary to accommodate the resizing of those lots. There is a 5-foot wide sidewalk along General Electric Road that is going to be required. That right now is proposed to be contained within the 5-foot additional land that they'll dedicate to the city. There is a deviation within the master plan to accommodate for the reduction in the buffer width from 15 feet to 10 feet. And again, at the time Lot 3 and 4 are platted, that portion of Hermit Smith Road will be dedicated to the city so that it's officially in the right-of-way and out of the private property. Go in the right direction. One item within the ordinance before you is a little different than City Council normally sees, is the effective date. Our City Attorney, Mike Rodriguez, worked with the attorney for Seafried and Blue Scope. The effective date of the ordinance is actually occurring 45 days after the amendment of the master plan to accommodate issues related to the closing of the properties and the sale between the parties. It somewhat occurs the situation of Mid-Florida Freezer sells the property to Blue Scope, who sells it to Seafried, who sells it to Amazon. So ultimately, the final owner has ownership of the property and the requirements of the master plan and development agreements. Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 19th, and they recommended approval of the amendment to the Mid-Florida Logistics Master Plan, found it consistent with the Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code. So their recommendation is to approve the amendment. This is the first hearing. There will be a second hearing. The case next is the preliminary development plan. That is being presented tonight, but you will not approve it until after you approve the this ordinance at your next hearing. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any additional questions of staff or the applicant, I will be glad to address them.
Any questions, Commissioner Becker?
Yeah, so can you go back a slide? I just want to confirm my understanding of the importance of this, no, the effective date one, the 45-day. So if I'm interpreting this correctly, so the Mid-Florida is okay with the revisions that we're making to the PUD because we're changing the footprint in accordance of what the applicant is wanting.
Correct.
Correct. So the idea being they want to make sure that that company is indeed coming in, because I would think that that company, if that said company is coming in, they've got some staying power, right? But if we don't,
Yeah.
do it in accordance with that. We want to revert back to the footprint that it is
Correct.
currently, because then that becomes more attractable to multiple businesses that would fill those spots. Am I playing that back correctly?
That is correct.
Okay.
So I don't believe they will, because they've already paid a lot of money for their building permits. But should
I just wanted to,
Amazon
I want to
walk
ensure the
away,
importance of this statement, right?
The existing master plan will fall back into place.
Okay, and then the only other point to make, right, is the still critical piece that we haven't seen yet that's forthcoming is the developer's agreement. That's kind of the final piece of the puzzle, so.
There may be two pieces to that, but, and the first piece is still under review by the attorneys, and transportation might be a separate part of that. That may come as a condition to the development agreement at a later date. There's some meetings and discussions that will likely happen between staff and Seafried this week.
Okay.
Questions, Commissioner Smith? I'm ready. Good, you ready? Commissioner Bankson? Good, good, okay. Would the applicant like to come forward? Are you good? Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2767 at first reading and hold it over for a second reading.
So moved.
Got a motion by
Second.
Commissioner Bankson, and second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So now we'll go back to preliminary development plan DFL 5, Apopka last mile. Oops. And that, Bobby, you got that one? Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Bobby House, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. As David said, we're requesting approval of this contingent upon second and final reading of the master plan amendment for Mid-Florida Logistics Park. The preliminary development plan details the construction of a 201,475 square foot warehouse distribution facility for an e-commerce retailer where delivery vans will be dispatched from and stored on site on Lot 3 and a portion of Lot 4 of Mid-Florida Logistics Park. The vicinity map shows the location of the surrounding area. Access to the site is located via 2 access points along General Electric Road and 2 access points along Shelby Industrial Drive. There'll be a 5-foot wide sidewalk constructed along both General Electric Road and Shelby Industrial Drive. 5-foot wide strip of right-of-way will be dedicated along the portion of the property located along General Electric Road, to help facilitate improvements to General Electric Road. Stormwater will be directed to the master stormwater ponds located in the logistics park. A total of 1,554 parking spaces will be provided on the project site. And of these parking spaces, they will be broken up between employee parking, van storage spaces, van staging, van loading, and trailer box loading spaces. Landscape plan is consistent with the approved PUD master plan. There'll be a development agreement forthcoming which will address concerns related to roadway network improvements. The architectural elevations are consistent with the architecture surrounded in the surrounding Mid-Florida Logistics Park, the Goya building that's currently under construction, as well as the Coca-Cola building. There are 5 conditions of approval. The Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission recommend approval subject to the conditions of approval that are contained within your staff report. And staff recommends City Council motion to continue the hearing to the June 17th, 2020 meeting to allow approval to be considered after second reading and adoption of the Mid-Florida Logistics Park PD Master Plan Amendment. The applicant is here to answer any questions as well as staff, if any, and that's the conclusion of my presentation.
Okay, would staff, or applicant like to come forward? We're good? Okay. Any questions from staff? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Okay, look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nolan.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, if I'm correct, it's actually a motion to continue the
To
matter, not to
continue
approve.
to January, or to June 16th, yes.
June 17th.
June
17th. Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Nolan to postpone till June 17th.
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Bankson. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, next up, ordinance number 2770.
Okay. Ordinance number 2770, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the future land use element of the Apopka Comprehensive Plan of the City of Apopka, changing policy 3.1.I, providing for severability and an effective date.
Okay, David, you back up?
The case before City Council is the text amendment to the comprehensive plan, future land use element, and a text amendment is handled similar to a amendment to the future land use map. After Planning Commission makes a recommendation, City Council holds a transmittal meeting. If you accept the ordinance at first reading, we transmit it to state agencies for their review, and then their comments come back to us about 40 to 60 days later, and then we move forward to the adoption hearing. Because of the interest nationwide and statewide and locally for assisted living facilities, nursing homes, and independent care facilities, and discussions with property owners who had interest in expanding those opportunities here in Apopka, staff is proposing to change the uses allowed under the commercial future land use designation under special exception to allow for nursing homes, assisted living facilities, and independent care facilities to be consistent with a density of up to 2.0 floor area ratio based on compatibility of the surrounding area, and it shall be a primary use and a standalone development. What the primary use and standalone development refer to is that basically it'd have to be on its own lot. Couldn't be in a shopping center or mixed in with other development. Since it's somewhat of a residential use, it would be separated from other uses within the same project. It's not intended really in this situation to be a mixed-use type development standalone. So that completes staff's presentation. Recommendation from both the Planning Commission and Development Review Committee is to accept the first reading of ordinance number 2770 and authorize transmittal to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. Planning Commission held its advertised hearing on May 19th. I'll address any questions you may have.
Any questions for David?
The only question I would, so with this change, then they would still, once an applicant comes in and wants to develop for this type of property, they would still then be subject to our land development code to make sure that the amount of parking, you know, it's just setting a ceiling that gives opportunity for people to use that property, correct?
Correct. And actually, next month, we will be bringing some glitch amendments that actually do cover this in the Land Development Code also, so it'll be, kind of paired with each other.
Yeah, because I mean, to David's point, I mean, there's a need for it. If you look it up and research this, I mean, the need for assisted living and
Nursing homes, things
nursing
like
homes,
that,
that type
all
of thing, and especially, what we're trying to promote in Apopka too is a full life cycle city, right? So
Yep.
people don't have to move away once they reach a certain age. I mean, I see it with neighbors myself. People my age, they are moving to other homes within the city of Apopka, so it's desirable and people want to stay here for either lateral or life cycle type of.
Yeah, Commissioner Smith and I are getting closer to that time.
I thought Commissioner Beck was referring to himself.
So, good, that's all I had.
I was glad you stayed away from this end of the table.
Yes. Any other questions? Okay, anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2770 at first reading and hold over for second reading.
So moved.
Got a motion by
Second.
Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Nolan. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, resolution number 2020-10, budget amendment. Jamie?
Yeah. Resolution number 2020-10 is just the budget amendment.
You still read the resolution.
Yeah, you gotta read the, yeah.
I don't have that one with me. Yeah, I don't have it with me.
Don't worry, Jamie, it's not just a
Here, I'll
budget
read it.
amendment to me.
Okay. Resolution number 2020-10 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2019, and ending September 20th, 2020, providing for a budget amendment.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. This budget amendment is just an amendment associated with consent agenda item for the PD for the COVID-19 Department of Justice grant that PD was awarded in the amount of $48,465. In their consent agenda item, it provided the information on what they're planning to spend that on. It's for hand sanitizer stations throughout all city buildings and some other PP&E related items for PD and other city staff areas to use.
Okay. Any questions for Jamie? Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing, look for a motion to approve resolution number 2020-10.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Becker, second by Commissioner Nolan. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. City council reports. Commissioner Nolan.
All right, give me a moment, I have it written out here. It's a lot been going on in the news, so I would like to apologize to the city of Apopka, my friends and my family, for not being forthcoming on my absences here at city council. Last year, I was diagnosed with lung cancer, and it's been quite the journey. My husband and I both chose to keep it private and not let my kids know and just work through it. But as many things like that, it has affected others in our life. It has affected friends, family. It's affected the city. And because of that, there's been a big lack of communication, and I wanted to give everybody an update on that. I wanted to address it as I continue my treatment. I will continue giving a little bit of update of where I'll be and how I'll be here. And things probably will change as time goes on, but I still want to kind of keep it private. I still want to continue this journey with my husband and as we face this new part of my life.
Okay.
So thank you.
We'll be praying for you.
Thank you.
Yes. Commissioner Bankson?
Yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and just read a statement, all that we're facing as a city. You know, Apopka, we see so much in the news, and we see some troubling things that we're facing, some challenging things as a nation, things that are causing us to really dig deep and have good, healthy conversations. And I think it's important for us to Apopka, as Apopka, we don't have to mimic things that have gone on around us, but we can be a leader in a good sense. So I just wanted to just read this statement. I've been grieved along with everyone else at the egregious act of abuse of power against George Floyd, and stand with all who call out this act and condemn it at its core. I also condemn those who would seek to use this as an opportunity to foment violence and further distrust against the thousands of good law enforcement who themselves are appalled. Finally, there is a legitimate hurt and frustration in the African American community, and those who seek to voice their nonviolent protest, which are protected by their constitutional rights as citizens, cannot be lumped in with those who seek destruction. My prayer is that we will all come together and seek true and equal justice and protection under the law and expose any form of injustice wherever it lies. My thoughts and prayers go out to the family of George Floyd and to all those who have suffered similar fate. And I think, you know, there's so many as I talk to that carry that same passion. We're grieved when we see things happen, but that does not, one brush does not paint all. And that's really at the core of both sides of that issue. And so that I just pray that we as a community do come together, that we do listen and have conversations rather than let emotion and anger rule. With understanding comes enlightenment, and we can see positive things come forward from this. And I'm very thankful that that's the tone that I hear from our city, and I believe we will traverse these in a positive manner, see positive change come from this, and those who have frustrations be able to voice them, to be heard, and to move forward.
Thank you. That's wise words. Thank you so much, Commissioner Bankson. Commissioner Smith?
Well, likewise, as Commissioner Bankston just alluded to what's going on nationwide in reference to the injustice that was done to Mr. Floyd, I too stand with the city in condemning such actions, and I'm proud of our police department that we don't have such a policy in place, and that our police department does have a relationship with our citizens here in the city of Apopka. And we are angry, and I believe that this took place at a time at which, during the pandemic, when people were at home, where this was taken notice and everybody had an opportunity to observe and see what was taking place in reference to the injustice that didn't just start, but I think this one was a little bit more visible because of the fact that the pandemic and people were at home and watching and observing what was taking place. And even though we're angry, we are reminded of what the Word of God says, is that we ought to be angry, but we're to sin not. And so the looting and the destruction of personal property and affecting the lives of other individuals is not something that we condone, and we just want individuals to express themselves in a positive way, in nonviolence, as Dr. King did when he was with us and led us and showed us, so that we don't take away from the real picture of the injustice and focus more on the destruction. And so we want our citizens to know that we are here with you, we hear you, and our city's behind you 100%, and we stand together in condoning what took place in this injustice.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Mr. Becker?
Yeah, I mean, you all speak much more eloquent than I do on these topics, and you know, it's just I can't be more blunt than to say what happened to George Floyd is just appalling and disgusting. You know, we represent people of all color, creed, and just station in life. And what it does is that even though it didn't happen in the city of Apopka, it allows us to recalibrate how, you know, Chief may run his department and get in front and be proactive about how his officers treat the people that they interact with on a daily basis. It allows us to recalibrate as people and how we treat each other on a day-to-day basis. And, you know, and good for the people that want to protest peacefully and protest with purpose. That's their right, and that's what we have to be able to promote for them to do, or for us to do. We're all in this together. But do it wisely. You know, what we don't want to see in Apopka is what we're seeing nationwide in terms of violence and how we're treating places of business. I mean, we have to keep in mind that many of these places of business are minority owned, the people that we're merely trying to protect with the protests that we're doing. So keep that in mind. Protest with purpose, but protect the people that are running these businesses, and especially with those that we have a lot of minority owned businesses here in the city of Apopka. So just be responsible, but you know, my heart goes out.
Well, well, before we go to Edwards, or I guess the city attorneys, I just want to tell you that interesting story. So as we were getting kind of ready to see what, you know, hopefully, you know, to be sure that we're safe here in the city of Apopka, was with the chief, and we were over at the police station, and there was a lady out there, you know, had her sign out there. She had her YouTube going and speaker, and was, you know, talking about the issues in a very respectful way. And so what did the chief do? He goes in his office, grabs a bottle of water, said, "Looks like you're thirsty, ma'am. Here's a bottle of water." So, you know, that's what that's Apopka. That's who we are. So I was proud of the chief for doing that. And so anyway, we'll get into the kind of what's going on this weekend.
And then, Mayor, one more thing. I wanted to publicly congratulate you and the team as well for the great graduation parades that happened the past 2 weeks.
Oh,
I mean,
you bet. Thank you.
Everybody's been raving about it, and I think it was just a great experience for the kids, and thank you for doing
I
that.
think they had a good time. Yes. That was good.
And Mayor, I'm going to give you kudos. Somebody made a comment that we led the way, and the other cities are trying to copy us. in what we're doing.
That's awesome. All right, next up, we have, I guess, Edward, you want to go next?
All right, so I don't have a lot of positive news. I have some negative news, but unfortunately, it's something we have to tackle as well. So if you recall, about a month ago, I gave a financial update, and we talked about, we had our April number that came in, which was for February's sales tax. Well, we've received the May contribution, which is March's sales. Keep in mind that there was some delays in the collections of the sales tax. You know, there were, a lot of businesses were given, you know, an extension to pay those sales taxes. So hopefully, you know, this number is reflective of some of those as well. But as you can see, our revenue sharing number, we were receiving about $220,000 a month. That number, keep in mind, the state projects that number in the beginning of the year, and then they give us an amount that's pretty consistent, almost the same amount, which it is basically, every month. And then they do a true-up at the end of the year on that number. Because that revenue is not a direct, there's a portion of the sales tax that comes in, goes into that revenue sharing, and then as a formula, and it's distributed a whole lot of different ways. So that number, rather than do it every month, they project a number at the beginning of the year, and then they set it, and that's what they give us. And then they true it up at the end of the year. Well, because of COVID-19, they've decided to true up now, which makes perfect sense, because if you don't, then at the end, we may have to give back. So you can see we took a big hit there. I will tell you from last month, I did not think that number would change. I thought they were going to leave that number alone until they got closer to the end, but they've elected to do it up front. So we took a big hit right there, as you can see, in the month of May. And then our half-cent sales tax, you can see that last year we received $811,000, and we had about a 7.5%, 8% increase. So that number should be a little bit higher than 811, and it only came in at $524,000. So overall, you can see, and I'll go over here and show you the projections. So you can see on the very top, if you look at the top number up here, overall, currently, we're projecting that up through the 8 months that we have about a $688,000 loss to date, currently. If you look down here in the projections, if you remember about a month ago, I told you that number was about 1.6 million. I missed it by a mile. But I will tell you, I used the state's, this number, if you recall last year, we thought this sales tax number, because it was March's number, would only be, we were told from DOR and from the state, about 25%, because there was still quite a bit going on in March. Unfortunately, it's 47% reduction for us, not 25. So that's where you see a big difference from last time to this time. So about a little over $500,000 we lost just in this current month, which represents March. That being said, I'm trying to look ahead, and if you look here into the projected loss, that number now I'm looking at is about $2.5 million instead of 1.6. So about $900,000 more. I'm projecting that we probably will be short in sales tax revenue when we get to the end of this fiscal year. Keep in mind, this is a crystal ball. I don't have it, but I'm hoping, based on now what I've seen here, that we can kind of project that number out. So if you look in this column here where I have the projected percentage, you can see that I'm anticipating about a 65% reduction in June, which will be April's activity. April, I think, if you can, as you recall, April's definitely going to be a harder hit month than March. So I don't know if 65 is the right number, if it's 70, if it's 60, if it's 50, I'm not sure. I think that's pretty good, but that's all we have to go on right now. And then, as you can see, further out in the future, I'm doing a 50% for July and August. And then I'm hoping that in September, which will be July's activity, that things will have picked up and we maybe will be down to maybe a 25% reduction in that sales tax number for that month. So based on this, again, I don't have the crystal ball, but trying to be as conservative and as best as we can so that we can plan for the future for this fiscal year, it looks like about $2.5 million hit we may have based on the sales tax reductions. Keep in mind, if you recall, we also had some other revenue areas that we're watching. The recreation fees, activity fees. As you know, some of the summer camp, we're starting that back slowly. So this $513,000 variance that you see in our recreation fees, we won't collect it all, but there may be a portion of that we will collect as we come back online between now and the end of the fiscal year. The school resource officer money, as you know, we were told the school board is going to pay that, so that there's some positive news that we will receive the full $490,000 for our school resource officer funding. Our VFW rentals are very slow, as you know, right now, based on everything. So we still have that loss. So as you can see, we have about $534,000, give or take, some revenues that we know are not going to take a big upward swing. So between the two, you can see we're off about $3 million roughly if we go by those estimates. If you recall, we had some expenditure numbers. These haven't changed very much, hardly any at all. Since the last time, we've got some open positions that we have some savings from in the general fund that we currently have frozen, some of those positions that we're kind of waiting to see what happens. You had some public safety positions. Again, the chief is still trying to hire police officers, but because of the lag, you've got some savings there for this year that can help. And then we've got some capital projects that are still on hold, that we're still kind of monitoring and watching, that are on hold, but that's about $1.5 million in capital expenditures that we're kind of just holding back on right now and monitoring. Some grant opportunities we have applied. I will tell you that we have applied for, we did get the DOJ. Jamie just gave you that number, so that's some assistance. We have applied for these other grants. The hardening program for roofs, we're in the middle of applying for a roof grant for a couple of our water plant facilities. Our fire station 3 needs a roof, it was in there, and also the police station is in need of a roof. So what we've done is, those are the ones that we can apply for with the grant. The other ones, the administrative buildings we can't apply for those with the grant. So we're applying for those. We have to apply by the end of this month, so we're gonna try to get that out. We are gonna do an RFP for the roofs. We're gonna do it for all the roofs to kind of see where we are, so we have an idea of what those costs will be for the roofs, and then that way, as we move through this next couple of months, we can see where we are financially, and based on that prioritizing of those roofs and what grants we might receive, which ones we could maybe have to make a decision to move up. If there's some that we need to do, that we need to go ahead and take care of those items, because those are the critical capital items that we're showing right now. Then we've applied for some CARES Act, I think, and we're getting ready to. Mayor's gonna, I won't take that. Mayor's got that. He'll present that to you, but there's some good news hopefully there for us. And then, as you can, I added some things to this slide. Long-term obligations, as we move into budget workshops, I think it's gonna be critical that we make sure that we look not just in this current year or the next year, but where are we gonna be 3, 5, and 8 years from now? It's gonna be very critical, especially with what's on the horizon. So, and as you can see, Susan gave her presentation today about cemeteries. That's one item that we're looking at. Pensions is another item that we're looking at. That number, fluctuates with the economy, and when it fluctuates, then the city, that has a big impact on the city's budget. So as we move into the budget season, we'll see that, not just this year, but that'll also affect the next year. Street lighting, as you know, we've been talking about that. We've had an issue there. We're putting something in place to where we can address that long-term financial need and obligation. Jim's gonna bring you the glitch amendments, which will put the street lights as special assessments going forward for new subdivisions. We're addressing that. Sanitation, and I think Mayor has some information for you on that as well. And if you recall, about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, when we were talking about budgets, I was telling you how the sanitation fund is kind of struggling. So we are the lowest in the area with our sanitation rates. This time when we come to you with the budget, there's going to be an area there, I think, where we're going to have maybe some slight increases, maybe the next year or so, maybe a couple years for the sanitation fund. But we will present all of that to you at budget time. Josh has a great report, great comparisons, great analysis. We can show you what he's done manpower-wise, truck-wise. I think it'll give you some good information when we get to that discussion. Stormwater, as you know, have some stormwater needs. That fund is currently being studied. That won't be completed in time for the budget, because we have a lot of work that we're doing, gathering all the data, gathering all of the information, because we've never had, it's been forever since we've had a stormwater study. So trying to make sure that we get all the information for the capital improvement plan for the stormwater, so when that comes back and you see that rate and that information, you have it all. So those are some long-term things that are there, and we have to think about that will have an impact on our budget. Maybe not all of this next year, but it will year 3, year 4, year 6, out there. You're gonna see these items will continue to put that burden on the budget. So it's important that we look at them now, so that we can figure out where we're going with those. And then there is some positive news in this slide a little bit. We received our preliminary numbers for the ad valorem for FY '21. And our ad valorem number, our revenue, our values equate to about a $1.1 million ad valorem increase in revenue next year at the current millage rate that we sit. That's at the same millage rate, which is about 8.5% increase in that revenue, which is almost identical to the year before. So it's quite interesting that number is about almost the same. So there's some positive news that we've got an increase there of about 1.1. As you can see, we have about $2.5 million we're losing this year in coronavirus. We await the state to give us, the estimating council to give us the numbers for what will that sales tax number be next year. That's going to be the key. And so that number will drive a lot of the budget process. So we'll do the budget workshops, and then hopefully, I don't think we're going to have the sales tax number until probably, I'm going to go out and say probably not until August. I think it's going to be as late as August, because I think they're trying to look at everything, what's coming back, how fast are the theme parks coming back, and it's going to be critical because that number is a huge part of our budget, and so that's the number that we'll be waiting on. So there's some positive news there from ad valorem. The audit is wrapping up. Jamie's going to bring the audit to you, so we'll have the reserve numbers that we'll be able to share with you, where the reserves are, how much we've put back into reserves, so you'll be able to have that information as well. So I think it's important, and I'll kind of keep you up to date each month, but I think it's important that we stay on top of all of these costs as we move forward. And now as we move into the budget workshops, we'll be able to see the needs and everything from the expenditure side, and then we'll be able to apply the revenues that we're going to have to that overall budget and see where we sit. So I think it's critical that we do this, and we'll continue to update you on these and bring all the information to you as we get there. So are there any questions?
Any questions for Edward?
Yeah,
Mr. Nixon?
you want to start down there?
Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, if these numbers were accurate, and this is what we were going by, we're at a 1.9 million shortfall. And, obviously for me, my first thought, other than where do we cut back, is how do we create revenue streams? Something that's consistent that adds to that. Short of that, I also like approaching what's our worst case scenario, so we know what we're going to have to face, and then we can always do better from there. If this were all, if we had to make this up out of ad valorem taxes, what would be the millage rate that would be required to make up that 1.9? Do you know?
I don't know it offhand, Commissioner. I can get you that information, so I can have that at the next, what I'll do is I can have that at the next meeting. I can provide you some what-if scenarios, and I could bring that to the next meeting as well to show you what that will bring. I just got this number yesterday, so I haven't had a lot of time to review it, but I wanted to give you what it would be at the current rate. But I have some information that in a spreadsheet that can give me that information, so I'll be more than willing to share that with you, and then I can bring that for
And
the
obviously,
next
that's
meeting as
the
well.
worst case scenario. That's the last place we want to have to go for that. But I would just be curious, what would we look at if that was our only option?
Right.
From there, obviously, we have reserve for times like this, but that eventually has to be made back up in prosperous times.
Right.
So all those things put together and looking at revenue streams, it's just a motivation for us to look at where can we grow this so that we can, take this in and hopefully get our people back to work, in a safe manner, but let's let our economy start working.
Well, and I think that's why I said earlier, I think it's critical. I want to make sure you have everything you need when you make these decisions in this upcoming budget. I want you to see the reserves over the period. I want you to see what we've put in to the reserves. I want you to see what critical projects do we have that we're holding back on that we need to make a decision on. This one's very critical, we need to move it up to the list, but these we can push off. I want you to have the revenues as they're coming in. I want you to have the best revenues at budget time, too. So that way you can make, and then what would the millage rate generate? You know, and here's that number. We're looking at all the fees, cemetery, all the long-term. Fire's looking at some of their fees. We're looking at everything. So everything's on the table. So I want to make sure that you have everything, all the possible, you know, from the reserves to the revenues that we can control, the revenues we can't control, and then that way you have the best possible information. You'll have all the expenditures that the departments have requested in their budgets from their presentations, and then that way we can make sure that we make the best decision. You have the information to make the best decision.
And just one other question. On investments, I know in the past we found that there was just not, the funds weren't invested in a good way that was producing revenue. Have we done better over this last year, or have we just been trying to play catch-up?
We have not. I will say the last 2 years, we've done better investment-wise, because Jamie's done a pretty good job. Again, safety and liquidity is the number one when it comes to state dollars, to public dollars. That's more important than the rate. The rate comes last, unfortunately, but that's how it works. She's done a good job at trying to get some of the highest rates we can get, but I will tell you that those rates have gone the other direction. But we are still earning some interest, not too bad. Yeah, they're not. There's no one that wants to give us any high interest rates or anything for
It's
our
always
money.
good to get to that place where the money is paying for itself, you know, such as with our cemetery. If we can get enough endowment that we can literally, it residually cares for itself, and that's always the goal. So.
And I think that's why, like Mayor was talking about in Susan's presentation, we got to look at all of those pieces and parts. What can we do to make sure that some of those things, they may not maintain 100% of, but if we can get them closer, those fees closer or whatever, then that takes a lot off.
Streetlight's another perfect example.
Right.
You know, so.
And just one other thing that I just remembered, in getting the word out to our citizens, of course, the Chamber has put out information fresh today for small business owners, you know, just getting that safety net out to our people who have taken the brunt of this themselves. Can we utilize the corner sign to point people to, like, our new information for our water billing and for, you know, look to the Chamber's website for help for small businesses, things like that. Yeah. Just that information, and I know you're trying to get more and more people involved in our social media, but just getting the word out, what's available. I think that's been something that people have said, I didn't even know. So the more we can do that, I think the better, just as a whole, we can face this.
Sure. Commissioner Smith?
My question was, and I guess maybe the mayor is going to cover that in his report, can we not use money from the CARES Act to make up for the deficit shortfall?
You cannot. Commissioner, and Mayor will talk about this. I don't want to take his report, but you can't, the CARES Act money cannot be used to supplement revenue. It can be used for, and Mayor will cover this, it can be used for the other items, you know, that our labor, our time, our supplies, things like that, but it specifically cannot be used to cover any shortfalls in revenues. And so we kind of can't use that for that.
Okay, so during our budget workshops, you say we may not have the number for the taxes until August. You're going to give us a number, imaginary number to use during that time to prepare a budget?
We'll give you, I will give you something, but I want to, like here, I hate to put something there and hate to come in this far off. But we'll have all the other numbers, so we'll be able to know that, hey, this number is where is this number going to come in? And we can do projections. We think it's going to be 25% less next year based on the economy. Do we think it'll be 35%? We'll have some what if numbers so that we can see what that will be.
Okay, but I believe the economy is going to come back faster than what they anticipate.
I hope you're right.
I think we're
I'm
going
with
to be
you,
fine.
Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Becker?
No, I just had questions on the projection column. Is that 65% and subsequent ones, is that against the fiscal year 2019 performance, or is that calendarization of budget? Because it doesn't foot? I wanted to make sure I
That
was reading it
is-
correctly.
That number is based on the projected loss number. You're talking about that number?
Yeah, so
What-
65% against what?
What I've done, let me show that, so I can show you what I've done, so you'll have that. So,
Month to month.
so this month, it's month to month.
Yeah.
This number right here is last year. We
Right.
were told that we would be anywhere from 7.5% to 8% over that number when we set our budget last year. So this projection takes this number per month with a 7.5%, 8% increase, and it subtracts it from what, this loss percentage. So this number increased for the 7.5%, 8%, that's what we should get roughly for each one of those months. And then I reduce it by 65, 50, 50, 25 to give me what the loss will be.
So your 65 calculation should be against the 1.018 for the prior
No,
month?
plus 8%.
Plus
Because
8%, increase
we
this
were
by
thinking we're
8%
gonna be
and then
8%
reduce
higher
it
than
by
last year.
65.
Okay, and
So
then you're
increase-
taking it down the list like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just doing it like
Okay.
that because each month, as you can see, this is a big month, this is a big month. So I expect a bigger loss in this month based on history, but who knows?
But you're taking, so to Mayor's point, you're taking 1.018,
Yep,
applying an 8% perceived increase month over month.
correct.
Right.
Then you're applying your 65% for that month, and that's where you're going to get your expected performance. But then are you taking it flat for the remainder of the months that you're projecting?
No, that's where he's going down 50% the
50,
next
50,
month.
and 25.
Right, but against what the actual is that
No,
you've
no,
accounted
no,
for
the same, that number
that? Okay.
plus the 8%, then times 50%.
Yes, I'm using each number for each prior month. I'm assuming that the month is.
But
gonna
you're
be-
still keeping the 8% increase?
Yes.
Okay,
Well,
that's
we-
where I would have taken it out, because you're expecting that you're going to be flatter. you're
Well,
gonna-
that's what we
yeah.
based our
Okay.
budget on that
Okay.
number.
Yeah, but I based the budget on
Yeah.
8, so I want to make
Yeah.
sure I include the 8 and then take it out.
Hey, I'm not questioning, I just want to reconcile how you all are calculating it, so, okay, I'm good.
All right. Edward, thank you. Yeah, I'm hoping, the one of the things, as we look forward into the 2021 budget, we still think there might even be a lower number of sales tax. I mean, when does it come back completely, 100%? And then what could happen, if you look at, the ad valorem, because this ad valorem is a year look back. So even though these numbers are up 8%, this is a look back to last year. What will ad valorem do next year? So we've got, I think, at least 2 additional years that we could see, financial, constraints on our budgets based on sales tax still being down and ad valorem could fall the following year. So still got some real challenges ahead of us.
And that's a good point. So when we have the budget workshop, can we model that out too? Because it's a combination of things. We've got existing inventory that might be impacted by COVID.
Yes.
Then we have our inventory that's coming new in the system, new construction, and that might be saving us a bit. So what does that look like?
And then I think then you look at residential, which I think might be a little more stable than commercial. But, if you look at all the, telecommuting going on, office buildings, are they worth as much as they were? Are people buying their retail online versus, so are commercial buildings going to be as valuable where you have no homestead exemptions? So you could even have a decent residential market in residential increases, but you've got all these exemptions, homestead exemptions, that you don't have on commercial. And if commercial drops through the floor, it would have a much bigger impact than, so there's, we've got, that ad valorem. I think we're still going to have sales tax. When does we come back to full? When is the airport full again? If we're hemorrhaging money, it's almost bled out at the airport. So we've got, challenges. So I wish it were just a 1 year and we're back in business, but I think we have to be very careful as we move forward. But you also have to look at, the numbers we're looking at, like the cemetery and the lighting comes to general revenue. But when you talk about the solid waste, it's its own fund. So it's not, those dollars can't help us make up for sales tax nor ad valorem. So the utility dollars have to stay in utilities, so there's, and if you take ad valorem and sales tax, that's $25 million. That's half of our revenue coming in for the general fund. So it will be a challenge. I mean, we'll get there, but but just, it will be a challenge.
It's like traffic. If you have on the interstate, if you have a accident at 8 a.m., it's not back up to speed until noon because of that event then and its recurring
Correct.
effect, and it's kind of that way with the economy.
Yes. Okay, next up, Michael's going to come up. I thought, asked him, if he wouldn't mind coming up. The mayor of Orange County came out last, what day was it?
Sunday.
Sunday first came out with a curfew on unincorporated Orange County, which didn't make a lot of sense to me, and so we reached out to the mayor's office and, because of the way our city and all the other cities are and how you could try to determine whether you're in the city or in the county and then the curfew. So anyway, got him to go back and readdress the curfew and make it countywide, and which made a whole lot more sense than trying to piecemeal it. So anyway, but I thought, Michael came to me and we were talking about, city's responsibility and what our authority was. And so I thought he'd just bring you kind of up to speed on how that would work from a city's point of view. So, Michael?
Sure. Good afternoon. The issue that came up is whether, God forbid, we had some type of an incident that really just affected the city of Apopka, and what authority does the city have to institute its own curfews in order to try to contain the situation. The city does statutorily have authority to initiate a curfew, but that authority is limited. Statute, Chapter 870 of Florida statutes provides a limited scope in the event of either, and quote it, overt acts of violence or imminent threat of such violence within a municipality. Then that city does have authority to initiate its own curfew. The statute is written as such that a municipality can adopt an ordinance to authorize a specific official to be the one who implements the curfew. And a lot of cities have different authorities to do so. I've reviewed some other cities. Some cities name the mayor as the authority. They can name a city manager. They can name the police chief. The default, though, is if a city has not implemented an ordinance, the default authority to issue and implement a curfew belongs to the police chief of the city. Apopka does not have an implementing ordinance, so therefore we default to Chapter 870's provisions, which state that the police chief can issue a curfew, determine what the curfew is, the hours, and its application. Now, that application of a curfew is only good for 72 hours, after which then the city council has to adopt an ordinance to continue the curfew or not. But again, this is really just solely limited to either if there is overt acts of violence or the imminent threat thereof. So the city's authority, while it's there, is limited. In this instance, the city did not have to actually implement this. Also, there was, without a credible imminent threat of violence or any actual overt violence, thankfully this issue did not arise. But that is the authority that the city has. This council can take into consideration whether they want to formalize it as part of a ordinance to formalize who is the authority to implement such act. But for now, the police chief has the statutory authority, if the need arises under the statute, to effectuate a curfew if necessary within the city.
So, any questions? I thought it was interesting. I didn't, had no idea how that worked, so that was, appreciate.
But I guess the only question I would have would be, if that does indeed happen, do we have a process in place for us to convene on a non-meeting if we had to do that, in fact?
Special.
Yes,
72 hours?
the statute does provide that the council can meet, and if they are to meet, if it's not, if the 72 hours falls outside, the city council can convene at a special emergency session. Then you're into the statutory authority that you're given as a city commission to meet on an emergency basis to then formalize any. It's also important to note, it skipped my mind, the only time a city can act if there is a localized state of emergency, if the governor has implemented a statewide state of emergency, those powers under 870 do not apply to the cities. So this would be really a localized event, which does not affect either any parts of the county or any of the area where the governor has not acted and implemented his own statewide state of emergency affecting that area. So when reading Mayor Deming's order, actually his order, what he did is he extended out the authority given to him under his state of emergency under the COVID in order to extend the countywide curfew. That was the authority, as that was what his executive order was written to. It covered not specifically the events that really fired up this weekend, but it was an extension of his authority under his executive order in regards to COVID-19. So I found that interesting.
Mr. Smith?
Looking at the makeup of our city, how it's designed, part of the Apopka is in unincorporated Apopka. So how would that ordinance affect those individuals that live in Apopka but not inside the city limits?
The authorities that are provided under, there are two criteria for any curfew, and it's really going to be specialized and specific as to what the situation is. There is discretion in regards to curfews, in which there are certain minimums. It's not an automatic, you must stay. So the police chief does have discretion to provide conditions in the event of a curfew if we have residents who are within the city and need to leave, or residents who are outside of the city limits and have to come in. Curfews are conditional. There are conditional curfews for essential workers, for other folks that need to travel during those curfew times. That provision of the law gives the police chief discretion as to determine what are going to be the boundaries and aspects of such a curfew.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
Michael. Appreciate that. Okay, on to the mayor's report. Well, let's go ahead and get this one, which we've tabled to this meeting, and that's the 4th of July fireworks. So we're back to make a decision. Obviously, we have to go to the Zambelli to get to sign a contract. I know I've talked to the chief. I know he's not in favor of it. I know that Brian Foreman is not in favor of it, and quite honestly, I'm not. And listen, I want the fireworks. I'd love to have the fireworks, but for me, it boils down to I don't want to put our staff in a position where they've got to force people to do something at night in the dark. May or may not be alcohol involved. I just don't think it's a recipe for disaster. And obviously, we can, I can be I can be voted down. That's fine. I just think that right now is not the time. And then quite honestly, I think that we as a city, I'd love to, do a big thing for Labor Day. I'd like to get, all the bells and whistles. And so with that, I will, and look to, somebody to kind of come forward and make their recommendation, but.
Well, as you said, there's the can we and should we.
Yeah.
And what weighs on that. The most difficult part is we can't hear corporately from our own people. We have to make those decisions based upon that. And I think the valid points were our liabilities, obviously, and there is technically window because it is an outdoors event. But the biggest thing weighing upon those who have to police that event and oversee that, it puts them in a difficult position to oversee that. So I think that has to weigh heavily on should we.
Mr. Nolan?
I think that, in the best interest of the community, that we don't do it. I think that it's not a scare thing, it's not anything else other than why put our citizens in that position or our staff in that position, that things could easily go awry. It's not necessary. We did one year the Labor Day thing before, and everybody loved it. I don't see why we couldn't do the same this year. Make the adjustments and go with the flow on that.
Yep. Commissioner Smith?
I'll wait till after Commissioner Becker. I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, Commissioner Becker?
I missed what No, I mean, if the staff recommendation is there's not a comfort level there, I respect that. Combined with the fact we're living in a different world than we were 2 weeks ago even. And we don't know, none of us up here have a crystal ball in terms of what's going to transpire over the next month. So I'm fully respect the decisions of staff.
Okay, we don't really have to make a motion because we don't sign the contract, so I think we can just move on. I needed one approval to sign the contract, but I don't need anything, just to let it. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of, keep informed. Maybe I'll have Brian, why don't you come on up? This would be a good spot for you, Brian, to come up and talk about kind of where we are with camps. But we'll look at something for Labor Day, and, we've got a little time for that, and then I'd love to do a blowout event. So anyway, with that, Brian, I want you to just kind of come up and talk to us about, some of the updates. Rec, we're putting our toe in the splash pad, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, the splash pad. So we're gonna open the splash pad on June 16th. It'll be open Tuesday to Sunday. We'll be closed on Mondays. We're gonna open at 50% capacity, which is 37 kids. The full capacity is 74. And
If my middle daughter, Emily, happens to call you, just tell her that we did it for her birthday.
okay.
So, that's her birthday.
So we're gonna do that. There will be also, we're adding camp at the Billy Dean Community Center, maximum of 18 kids per week for that program, but we'll add that. Camp is gonna start June 15th in both places, both Williams Park and Frank Carlton Center. We're extending the hours of Frank Carlton Center. Originally, we said 8 to 4. It's gonna be 7:30 to 5:30, like it has been in the past. It's still the maximum of 45 kids total registration in that program, and it'll still be a maximum of 9 kids per group. So those things haven't changed. They'll still screen everybody coming in. All the camp kids be screened coming in for health issues. At Northwest also, we've started to allow teams to come in to practice, to reserve the fields. Little League is starting back up. They're starting practices next week. Their games are starting June 15th. They have a criteria that Gary Odom, their president, sent me from the national office that they're going to be following as far as their health issues go. So the national office in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, sent that to them, and they'll follow that.
We probably should put that up, Rob, if you could get that up on the website, just so the parents will know. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
And tournaments are going to start back on June 27th, the last weekend of June. We'll allow tournaments back. The tournament directors will sign a waiver taking responsibility for following social distancing protocols. So that's pretty much where we are.
Any questions for Brian? Kind of, we're just, we're trying to ramp it up. One other camp, which is the police and the fire. We're just, because the kids were to put on the uniforms and all the things that, no social, well, I guess you could be social distancing, but all the equipment they need to put on to get the true experience of the police and fire, we just didn't think there was any way to do that. And so we've postponed the police and fire camps till next year. So, any questions for Brian?
Just on the splash pad, 50% capacity, how, if social distancing is, I mean, that's just going to be a challenge, but it will for any of our children's activities. Fortunately, they're not as in an at-risk category. As things change nationally and in our state, will we then automatically, obviously, increase the capacity?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Commissioner Smith?
Good.
Good? Mr. Becker? Good? Okay. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Okay. Let's see here. That's that. If you got the numbers in there for the zip codes here in Apopka, just so you know, when I got with Commissioner Chief Wylam, you got this one blip where it's 18, and just so you know that what happened is that's when they sent all these tests in, and they all came back one day, and so there's no smoothing, so it's not, things are still going the right direction. We feel good. We're still waiting on something from the feds to allow us to go ahead and go back to testing with the antibody test. We still think there's a real value for people here in Apopka. Just they haven't given us the go-ahead green light to use the tests that we're ready to purchase. So working on that. You should have in your packet the expenses. So the Orange County just came out at the end of last week with kind of their preliminary budget. They have the $234 million for COVID relief. And so I wanted to show you that some of the things where we feel like we can look for funding from Orange County. We are, like the testing, we did the 3 days. We're going to apply for that here today or tomorrow. Probably we'll have that in Orange County's hands. So it's anything where payroll, like if we're doing our testing, payroll would be included. We've got, we're even going to apply for some funding from Orange County for the equipment that we have here in City Council so that we can now, go on live with YouTube. We're looking at one of the girls that works at the museum, because it's closed. She's been helping us here clean doorknobs and countertops and all that. That would be included under, the way I read, and I think the way my understanding with Fred Wintercamp, who's running the program for Orange County. So all these are the expenses that we feel like would be covered. So obviously any PPE will be covered under the COVID. It runs through the end of the year. The one thing I've let all of anybody who would try to get some of these dollars from Orange County is that we want to stay up on top of it, because when that money runs out, if it runs out October 3rd, it's October 3rd. So we're going to stay right on top of any expenses that would meet the qualifications from Orange County to being reimbursed, so that we can try to supplement those activities that will reduce the spread of the COVID-19. Next up, kind of interesting, it was in today's paper, Orange County to raise trash fees. We're talking about trash fees. We're at the bottom. We're at 202, I think, 204. Orange County's going to 245 per year, and we give them more service. So we're going to be looking to do without going to an ordinance. We can increase the fees by 3%. So obviously that doesn't get us there, but it gets us enough to where it'll help us with our budget for the next year. So just so that's in there. Another interesting article in your packet on Orange County Commissioners as far as the CEAs is, as we try to navigate through Orange County and the overcapacity schools and how that is being determined. So we're still waiting to see where that ends up. It's with other cities in Orange County have the same issues. I know Ocoee's got quite a few where they're being held up for developments that they fall under the CEA. Let's see here. We've got, I thought it was kind of nice. We got it in there is also the Apopka makes top 50 ranking in Florida, being one of the best cities for homeowners' return on investment. So I think that's pretty neat. So we were, let's see, we're number 46 in Florida and 828 in the nation. So there's great value here in Apopka as far as our home values and the cost to maintain them. So let's see, the real estate. Okay, the high school graduation, I think all but Commissioner Miller were there Saturday, and, we had, 400 kids that were attended from Apopka. We had, I think, 60 or 70 kids from Wekiva that were at the graduation parade. And I want a special shout out to Aubrey Kahn, the John Land Trust, the Mullinex Ford, and Rotary. They donated enough money so that the parade was covered, all the costs. We had Salem Communications out as the kids rode around. They got to hear their name and who their favorite teacher was, what their favorite class was, what clubs they were in, what sports they played. And so what a great experience. Kids just really enjoyed it. Rollo Flores and Ken Frazier did the photography there, did a really nice job. And so thanks for everybody who showed up. I think it was a great day, or great 2 days, and couldn't have done it without the parents that were out helping decorate the mornings of their prospective parades. And what a great event. So thank you for your help. And last but not least, for sure not least, we've got a demonstration on Saturday. I know a lot of people have talked about it. It's on Saturday at Kitland Nelson Park. just to kind of give you a little bit of the background on it, we had a couple of students from Apopka High School that you know, came forward and said they'd like to do something to, you know, in remembrance. And so we said, okay, I think, you know, got with the chief, and we're, you know, trying to put this together. So we thought, well, why don't we partner with them, the city and the police department and our folks. So Saturday morning at 11:30 at Kitland Nelson Park, we're gonna host it along with the Ministerial Alliance and the South Apopka Ministerial Alliance. And so we're really gonna try to make this a day of remembrance of Mr. Floyd, and also, you know, where we are as a city. I think I'm so proud of our, you know, our police department. I think the community as a whole is going to come together. I feel comfortable that this will be a peaceful demonstration and outlining where we think, you know, our city should be and where we should go. And so we you know, anybody, we encourage you to come out, be a part of it. Kitland Nelson Park, 11:30. We'd love to have a lot of people there and talk about, you know, how we move forward. So with that, thank you all for coming.